Well, a pleasant good afternoon, fans, and welcome to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the Ballfather Podcast, presented by Sports Keeta. I'm Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL communications executive. We got a special guest, one of my old friends, who is the governor of South Florida sports. Craig Mish is the host of Newswire on Sports Grid Network. Sports Grid is a streaming sports wagering information network that is free at sportsgrid.com. The Sports Grid app, and also free on Samsung Plus, Amazon Prime, anywhere you stream, you can find it. Craig is also a senior baseball contributor to the Miami Herald, covering the Miami Marlins, in addition to contributing to Major League Baseball. He breaks the big baseball news as well. Of course you do. Good afternoon, man. What's going on with you?
Well, Reggie, it is such an honor to be back with you here. I feel like, dialing it back to the late 90s, early 2000s with, the Buccaneers and the heyday of, it was fun. All Stott and Dunn and Trent Dilfer and Coach Dungy, man, what an incredible guy he was to work with. And you were the king of it all back then. You were so incredibly wonderful to me. I remember back then I was coming up in the industry. I want to say I was in my early 20s. And boy, the one thing about you, Reggie, is that you treat, I may have been 22, but you treated me like I was in the industry for, 30 years, coming from a little place in Sarasota, covering the games in Tampa. So it is great to reconnect with you, and thank you so much for having me on this. I appreciate it.
Listen, thank you. The pleasure's mine. Look, I'm a guy, I give a lot of credit to, I have two incredible parents who are both gone now. But my mom spent 40 years teaching the Rapid Parish school system in Louisiana, in central Louisiana, where I grew up. And she always talked about, to be considered a good person, you have to treat everybody the same, because you never choose the people that you mistreat are the people that, you won't get your blessings, and good things won't happen to you if you mistreat people. And look, we were all learning. One of the things that I've done my entire career is to mentor and to give back, and to be, even with guys that I don't agree with. There's guys in the industry that I've fought with constantly. Let me give you an example. Zach Klein, I don't know if you know Zach. Zach's out of Atlanta. Okay. Zach, if Zach came on the show right now, we basically buried the hatchet. But there were days he'd say green, I'd say blue. He'd say one, I'd say two. We never could agree, but we always sort of found a way and time to sort of figure out a common ground, a workaround. And I think that's what is as a PR person, you have to do that. You're not going to agree. You're not going to agree with the media people on every issue, but if you sort of try to find some common ground, I think you can do that. Yeah,
for sure. And look, I think that in doing this as long as I have, I'm going to be 50 years old next week, and so wow, it's a big milestone, for me. But it's people like yourself in sports that taught me that, hey, look, pay it forward, pay it back, however they say it. And so now I got young kids that look up to me that are trying to cover sports and break news and do some of the things that I did when I was 20 and 30 years old. And I try to do the same thing and treat them all fairly, equally. And hopefully they'll hire me one day, Reggie. That's the way I look at it. I'm going to be too old for this one day, and I'm going to need to call them for some help, and hopefully they help me out.
It's trending younger. It's trending younger. I just saw a note where a bunch of guys that I've hired and worked with and mentored are doing a roundtable discussion, PR discussion tomorrow in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
Five guys Corey Rush from the 49ers, Ted from the Chiefs, Peter John Baptiste from the Browns, and Artis Twyman from the Rams. I remember when all 3 or 4 of those guys were, assistants, young assistants like we were back in the day. And all 4 of those guys are now PR chiefs. Ted's is executive vice president. Corey's the vice president for. All those guys they're all VPs now, and I'm so proud of them, because every now and again they'll call the old man to say, "Hey, listen, I've got this going. What would you do here? What did you do? What would you do there?" And so Ted teases them all. Ted says, because one of the things I learned from Reg kept a document on everything.
Wow.
And I carried with me everywhere we went, a statement, whatever it was, we carried the book with us. Because you never know what's going to happen when you're on the road. You got to be prepared. Because a lot of times, one thing you don't have as a PR person, you don't have time to sort of recreate it and kind of figure it out. So you got to have some framework. We can talk about this. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the sports world. all of my friends who like the Rays, I'm getting all sorts of tweets. I'm getting all sorts of notes. We may never lose. All of this trash. But listen, 12-0, whether you're marbles, whether you're playing jacks, whether you're playing youth baseball, girls soccer, it really doesn't matter. 12-0 is 12-0. So what's your thoughts on the Rays and how they get it done with one of the smallest payrolls in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Reggie, that initially when they got off to that hot streak, I got to call it fairly. I probably was among that small group that said, oh, yeah, they beat up on Washington, and here they go. They beat up on Oakland. But you cannot be saying that right now. I mean, they are dismantling the Boston Red Sox, too, playing great baseball, hitting more home runs than anybody in baseball. And look, they have a system, Reggie, that has worked and has worked for them for so long. I think, what's also compelling about this, Reggie, is that they're beating up on Boston. And the vice president right now, or president of baseball operations for the Red Sox, is Chaim Bloom. This guy used to run the Rays, How's he feeling right now? He's like looking across the way going, my gosh, that was me. And it just goes to show you that it's their group that is together. I don't think it is one person. And so that's why it's almost impossible to replicate what they did. Teams are trying. They're taking players. I mean, Andrew Silverman, who's now leading the Dodgers, he was a member of the Rays, much bigger payroll, much different situation. But I get this question a lot in baseball, Reggie. Why can't we just be the Rays? Why can't we just do what the Rays do? And the thing that I would stress more than anything else is the struggle is real in terms of the fans. The struggle is real as far as them giving long-term extensions to players. They don't do it, Reggie. They give 1-year deals or 2-year deals. They'll extend their own guys, but they will not go outside in free agency and sign a guy to 5-6 years. They just simply won't do it. But the easiest way that I could say it, now I know a lot more than this, we could get deeper into it another time, but the easiest way that I can say is go to their website and take a look at how many people are in baseball operations in their front office. They pay those people, Reggie. They are paying a lot of folks, a lot of smart folks behind the scenes. So while they may not necessarily invested that much in their major league staff, they're investing it in the minor leagues, they're investing in it internationally, and they're investing it in their own people around the ball club. And I think that is a model that you can copy. But boy, to have that many people all at the same time doing the right thing in any sport, very difficult.
That's incredible when you look at it. So in other words, what you're saying, let me make sure I got this right, Greg. You're telling me that they're devoting a lot of resources to the executive staff and to the minor league staff to sort of scout and do what's the word? The analytics and all that piece of it.
And develop.
Okay. Wow, that's incredible because when you look at it on the field, I think the highest guy on their team is making $11 million. I think the one guy is making $11 million, but they've done it with pitching, they've done it with small ball, and they've done it with really, really good defense. And I'm shocked. I'm as shocked as anybody that they're 12-0. Now, again, they did beat up on the Nationals. Okay, they did beat up on I think the Tigers and who else?
The A's.
And the A's. Those three teams are at the bottom of their division. Boston Red Sox, unfortunately, right now they're at the bottom of their division too. They're playing. Right. They're playing pretty. They're not playing bad, but they're just. They're not
that good.
They're not that good. They're not that good. Okay, all right. I hate Boston, so I'm glad you said that. I hate them, so we can say.
I'll say it.
Do you think this is sustainable? I mean, obviously they won't go 162-0. They'll hit a bad punch. But what do you think this is a playoff team? Do you think they're just off to a hot streak, or they can sustain it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it based on the 12-win streak that they've had here, if they play 500 baseball the rest of the season, they're going to make the postseason. So that tells you really all you need to know. But I think that more than anything, even with the home runs that they hit and they sort of piecemeal it together, as you mentioned, with different players, they also have a way of finding these guys to come out of the bullpen and get the final 9 outs or whatever is required. They found this guy, Reggie, from who knows where. I think it was Texas, Jeffrey Springs. And they put him in that biometrics lab or whatever they have. By the way, take a look on their website. They got like 7 biometrics people. I mean, what they do, I don't know, but it works. And this guy, Jeffrey Springs, last year was so fantastic. They felt like they figured him out. They gave him a long-term extension, a 4 or 5 year contract, millions and millions of dollars. So they will extend their own guys. It's just in free agency. It's like it almost feels like if they don't know you, they're not going to sign you. But if they know you and they like you, they're going to sign you. They may trade you, by the way, at some point too. That a lot. Sure. But to me, that's been the story thus far. They have this guy, Shane McClanahan, young pitcher who almost won the Cy Young. Now they have Jeffrey Springs that they have too, but Reggie, historically speaking, again, going back to the same thing, they don't even give 2-year contracts out. Charlie Morton was the only one they gave a 2-year contract to in like a decade in terms of a free agency, and that was only a 2-year contract. So it's almost like they want you to be burning for that fire to become a free agent again next year, and it definitely has worked. Long story short, to answer your question, Rays will win close to 90 games is my guess. They'll be in the postseason, and then the dynamic does come. Now you're fighting up against these $300 million payrolls, and to be fair to the rest of the league, the Rays, they haven't won a World Series. They've only, they've gotten to a couple. And that's great for that market. That's great for success. But to get over the top, it almost feels like you do have to have your judges and you have to have those superstar type players.
Someone from Major League Baseball said to me last week that what happens is, it'll be exciting. It'll be the talk of the summer if they can kind of keep it going, like you say, play 500 baseball. But what happens, he goes, Reg, what happens is that the money and the talent and, over the long haul of the season, it just sort of takes over. So Judge will show up and hit a long ball. LeMahieu will show up and hit a long ball. What Frenchie Cordero's doing the first 12 games of the season, I don't think anybody thought that was going to happen. But teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Phillies, teams like the Yankees, the money's so big and the talent just sort of over the long grind of the season just sort of overtakes teams like the Rays. And that's probably why one of the contributing reasons as to why they haven't won a World Series.
Yeah, and the antithesis of that, Reggie, would be, like, as an example, we could talk about Miami, but not just Miami, but like if you're Cincinnati or you are Pittsburgh or you are Kansas City, or let's even use Milwaukee. We could go a little bit higher than that. You would take that, right? Like
Sure.
The fan base would take that. If I said to you, hey, in the next 10 years, you're going to make the postseason 7 times, and you're going to go to the American League Championship twice, and the National League Champ, and the pennant once, win it once, and go to the World Series, you'd take it right now in those markets. And that's the question you have to ask yourself: is that all worth it? I think if you're a Yankees fan or a Phillies fan or a Braves fan or a Dodgers fan, you'd say no. But 20 other teams would say yes. Give it to me right now.
Absolutely. Just switching gears. I took my girlfriend to see her first baseball game. We went to see the Braves in that Palace of the stadium they play in last summer. And they were playing the Marlins. And the Marlins, for everything that they have, South Florida, it's beautiful. The weather's lovely, the hotels, the beach, the people, the ladies, all that stuff. You're a professional athlete. You would think that coming to play for the Miami Marlins would be, every free agent in America should want to come here to play. Why can't they get it right? You had the captain, my guy, Derek Jeter there, trying to fix it, trying to rebuild it. What's happened? Why can't they figure out how to play winning baseball in South Florida?
Yeah, the fans are very fickle here, Reggie, because I think it does stem back to winning World Series twice,
right?
And dismantling after that. I do feel like they lost a large group of fans from that are just simply not going to buy back in, regardless of who owned it. By the way, I don't know if you saw The Captain. Did you watch The Captain documentary? Did you watch the whole thing?
I didn't see it yet. No, I
well,
didn't.
If you did, you're talking to a guy who was in it. You would have known because I'm in The Captain.
Gotta go find. I'll get it.
I'm in that final episode talking about that whole situation with the Marlins. Okay. We don't have enough time to do Derek Jeter's tenure here. We could do. There's a lot to unpack with that. So you have this fan base who feels a little scarred, and then you have these new owners and all these new people coming in and say, we're going to do it right, we're going to do it right, we're going to do it right, and it just never gets done right. You have so many people throwing darts, Reggie. It's like, look at this World Baseball Classic. They got 35,000 people there. Oh, well, they should just sign all Latin guys, right? Like, that's what they should do. They should just make it a full-on Latin team. Their Cy Young Award winner, Reggie, from the Dominican Republic, won the Cy Young. They don't go to the games to watch this guy pitch either. I mean, I am telling you, these people supported their countries for sure. Yeah. But it's about the name on the front of the jersey, not the back. I've been saying this for years, and that's just Venezuela, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. And those fan bases are tremendous, but they're supporting their country. It's like we got the Cy Young Award winner pitcher once every 5 days. I get 10,000 people at the game. So People and players, by the way, Reggie, do not want to play in Miami. They just, generally speaking, they want to go into a winning situation where they feel it is easy to hit home runs. The Marlins this offseason made contract offers to a lot of other players who turned them down, and they had to settle for some others. Thus far, they've played okay. But it is a dynamic that I don't know that will ever get solved in South Florida. But the one thing that I can tell you is that they do have now an opportunity, because there are so many kids that are playing ball in South Florida. Some of the best players in baseball are from South Florida. What they have to do is reestablish themselves in that market, Reggie, because my 10-year-old and other kids, 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds, guess who they're playing for? They're playing for that front of the jersey too in the Marlins. They don't care who's playing for the Marlins. They just want to go to see baseball. They have to get those kids back in, reestablish a new fan base, because people like me, the 40s, the 50s, they've seen it. They saw the Marlins win twice. They saw it dismantled. They're afraid it's going to happen again, and they don't want to come back.
It was an exciting time when Craig Counsell was on that team. They were winning. That was an exciting brand. They hit home runs. They played small ball. They did a lot of things right, and it was an exciting time. I'm thinking, okay, you got it. You got it. How can you replicate it? And I guess what you said was really interesting. Let me ask you this: the new group, who's in charge there? Mm-hmm. Believe in them? Are they trying to do it right? Do you think they have a chance? Can they overcome it?
Yeah. So this is where it gets complicated, because Derek Jeter, who was the CEO of the team for 4 years, was brought in along with Bruce Sherman, who is the principal owner of the team. He's got the most interest, the most stake in the franchise. And so when Sherman was the owner, he basically deferred everything in those first 4 years to Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter ran the team. He did everything. It was a really acrimonious, I would say, breakup at the end there. Jeter, in a statement, had said that there were some things that he didn't feel were the same as when he came in as when he ended. But I gotta say, and I would say to Derek if I saw him in person too, like that, he was not a success when he was here, Reggie. He was not. I mean, they did not accomplish anything. They went to the postseason in a 60-game season, and they had a good series. They beat the Cubs, but generally speaking, more fans were not going to those games. Their farm system was not developed in the way that 5 years in that we thought it was. The Marlins, Reggie, right now they got 9 guys playing opening day. There isn't one player that started for them opening day that was drafted by them, either in the draft or internationally. That is rare to not having 9 players on the team that are like that. Now, obviously, their pitchers have done fantastic. So with Jeter's exit, this is now all solely on Bruce Sherman, who now has, it would appear, to be a much more active role in the organization. And this guy wants to win, Reggie. He does. He really wants to win badly. But the question is what will it require to get that done? And it still remains to be seen, because it's easier said than done to say, hey, go sign Manny Machado for $350 million, but you're only getting 10,000 people at the games. Okay, so the owner says to himself, well, listen, I'm not going to give this guy $350 million if we're getting 10,000 people, but show me the players that are making $40 million or $50 million. I'll sign those. But Reggie, if those don't work out, what do you have on your hands? What do you have on your hands? And that sort of is what happened over the last year or two. But at least here in 2023, it has not been a bad start. As we're recording this, they're only 1 game under 500. We're just going to have to see what happens as the season goes on. Kim Ng, who is the general manager, remember, was brought in by Derek Jeter as well. So, without a doubt, she has got to win this year as general manager of the Marlins as well.
Let's switch over to your basketball team, you talk about going down to see an exciting brand of basketball. Spoelstra knows what he's doing. Basketball is cyclical. Sometimes you have a really good year, sometimes you struggle. What do they need to do to fix that roster to get back to where they need to be?
Yeah, this is a rare spot for the Miami Heat, Reggie, because every year it's pretty easy on paper. It looks like, okay, they need this, they need that. Pat Riley goes in that room and he grabs his money guy, Andy Ellisberg. They sit down and say, we can't do anything because of the cap. And then Andy spins some wheels and makes some things happen. And then boom, they end up with Kyle Lowry. It's like it happens with them every year. But this year in particular, it feels a little salty. It feels like there's a lot that needs to be done with them. They have 2 stars, I think, in Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and maybe another one in Tyler Hero. But I think they may have to trade Tyler Hero in order to get the kind of players they want back in return. And again, they're kicking the can with these draft picks. Reggie, they're going to have to dig into that bag of draft picks from 2037 or whatever it is. They never draft anybody, the Heat. They just trade the picks. and try and find a star to line up along with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. They thought Kyle Lowry was that guy. Reggie, he didn't play like the whole year. Like, he just kept sitting out and they weren't playing him. And at the beginning of the season, they were worried about conditioning. And then he came off the bench the other day, had a great game. So it feels like once every 6 or 7 years, Riley is faced with this difficult task of making the call. Do we blow it up and start over? Or do we just try and retool and figure it out? For Riley, it's always been about retool and figure it out. But as you can see, they're on the back end of that playoff picture. They lost to Atlanta the other night. Best case scenario, I don't know when people are listening to this, but best case scenario, the Heat's on the back end of the playoffs. They play the Bulls on Friday night. They get in. They're probably going to be a quick exit. Let's be honest. They're not going to go far. They haven't looked good all season. And then the work begins for the Heat at the end.
Yeah, with the PR man, the coach talking ball on the Ballfather Podcast presented by Sports Kita. What about our football team? What's going on there? I mean, Tua, good story. Concussions, can't really stay healthy.
Yeah.
I like the young coach. I like his moxie. I like the T-shirt thing that he wore about going to play in Buffalo. I like him. I like he got some defensive pieces. I like the receivers, the guy from Alabama, Waddle, I like those guys. What do they need to take the next step to get to the playoffs?
Boy, I'm thinking of you in this story here. Going not back to last year, but the year before. Jason Jenkins, of course, rest in peace. How he had to handle that story, 2 years ago. Jason, incredible guy, and certainly want to honor him as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Fantastic media, no doubt. But I mean, 2 years ago with the Brian Flores stuff with Reggie and Deshaun Watson, and then we got through all that.
Right.
And boy, it's like this blank canvas was there. You got Tua, you got Tyreek Hill, and Mike McDaniel looked so good in the first handful of games. And then you're right, Tua had those concussions. They signed Mike White to back him up, and so that's a huge endorsement, as you know. When the backup is not great, that's a huge endorsement for the starter. It's not like they brought somebody in. It's
correct.
Peeking over his shoulder. Mike White is a backup. Is he better than the last backup that they had in Teddy Bridgewater or Jacoby Brissett? I don't know. Probably not. Probably about the same. But inevitably, it's like most things in the NFL. It's inevitably now more about the quarterback than anything else. Of course, when I was covering the Buccaneers, you could never get away with a Trent Dilfer starting right now like you did back then with the Ravens. It's unheard of to think that could happen right now. So if Tua is healthy and he plays every game, the Dolphins are a Super Bowl candidate. They have to be. They're so talented, so offensively well coached. I think the defense will be a little bit better this year than it was last year. And I think it's evident that Buffalo has this window, but they better start taking advantage of this window with Josh Allen and some of the other players. They're going to be really good, but they haven't won yet. They haven't won that Super Bowl yet. New England, I think, is going the other way. So the division is certainly winnable. Aaron Rodgers are not with the Jets. I don't think that matters. Dolphins have to be one of the top 5 teams going into the season to potentially win the Super Bowl. It's very obvious, though, that Tua must play quarterback for that team to get there.
They've got to address one or two spots on the offensive line. The league is better when the Dolphins are good. When South Florida is part of the whole lexicon of success, when the Dolphins are playing really, really good, the league's better. And and Tua's tough. I mean, the guys trying to come back. They've got the Tyreek Hills there. I mean, it's an exciting brand. And like I said, I'm cheering for them. I'm hoping they got to fix that offensive line because obviously Tua, he suffered those concussions in long term. That's not good for him. They got to get that part fixed.
Yeah, for sure. And Jalen Waddle too. I mean, this is, Reggie, even before, probably the most exciting Dolphins offense since Marino. That's crazy to say, but this is definitely in that conversation since then, I think.
I'll tell you what, in 2 weeks from today, we got a little event going on in Kansas City called the NFL Draft. And like with every draft, it's always quarterback centric. It's always the quarterbacks are being discussed. Have you studied the quarterbacks this year?
Sure.
I think consensus wise, Carolina's got the first pick. I talked to somebody today that said it's going to be C.J. Stroud. 20 minutes after I got off the phone with this person, I talked to somebody else and said, "Oh, absolutely not. They're going to take Bryce.
Right.
I'll take him." So, what are you hearing, South Florida man? What are you hearing? What are you hearing about what Carolina's going to do?
I mean, you can follow the money, Reggie, and on FanDuel right now, Bryce Young is the favorite. So that's the low-lying fruit right there. Is usually I just click on that and say, "Oh, minus 130, that's the guy." I think those are the first two. I don't have any insight beyond that. Would be a guess for me, but I do think in some order. it would be Bryce Young and Stroud. And look, Bryce Young won a lot at Alabama. If you go back and you look at track history with Alabama quarterbacks, it's 60-40, 40-60, depending on the success. Ohio State quarterbacks, the last one in Justin Fields looks like a pretty good quarterback too, so there's success there. Personally, for me though, being a Gator, Reggie, I think the story is Anthony Richardson, because I gotta tell you, he was not good at all at the University of Florida. I love the guy, don't get me wrong. I watched every snap of every play. And he wasn't that good. I'm stunned. I am stunned that he's going to be the 3rd pick of the draft or the 5th pick of the draft. And you know what, Reggie? I honestly am rooting for him. Obviously, I was a little burnt to see him leave, and I understood it. When he left, I'm like, 7th round pick. Are you kidding me? 3rd pick in the draft? So he was great against Utah in that first game last season. And it looked to me like he was the best player in all of college football. They get midway through the season. Their head coach, they're not won't even let him throw. They will not let this guy throw the ball. And now you're telling me he's going to run an NFL offense? I hope for the best. I don't want to see this end up like Malik Willis. I don't think Malik Willis can play, unfortunately, and I don't want to see that happen. I think Richardson's better than Malik Willis. But that being said, that is to me the story of the draft. The team that takes him, and can they properly develop him, and please let him sit for the season. Let him sit.
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, he's 6'4", 244. I remember before, I'll give you a quick story, give you a little background here. Before the combine developed into the whole huge monstrosity that it is, the combine used to be yours truly and 10 writers: Rick Goslin, John McClain, Dan Pearson, Rick Goslin. There was Dan Pompey, 10 writers hanging out in the lobby of the Holiday Inn in Indianapolis. They give yours truly, when I was working at the league office, they give me a list. They give me a list of all the 25, 30 guys they want to talk to. And I'd run back in the back, steal those guys away from interviews, and bring those guys out for the media to talk to. That's what it was, okay? One of the guys they wanted to talk to that particular year, I think it was, I forget what year it was, might have been 93, 92, whatever the year it was. They wanted to talk to Eddie George. They said, he's a running back Ohio State. So I'm walking around, and I asked one of my guys, I said, show me where Eddie George. He goes, he's right there. And I said, no. I said, I want to talk to the running back. And the guy's a defensive backer. He goes, no. That's Eddie George. I walked up to him and I looked up. I said, are you Eddie George? He goes, yeah. So I told, and Eddie and I laugh about it now. Okay, Anthony Richardson is bigger than Eddie George. He's 6'4", 244 pounds. He's gigantic. Okay? And the whole thing about him that I think that's really, really interesting, okay? Rocket arm, elite arm, 4.43 40, 40.5 inch vertical jump. But the one number, and there's two other numbers. Let me give you these. The 53.8 completion percentage scares me. But the thing that gives me great comfort is that he's 20 years old.
That's the thing, of course.
He's 20 years old. And if he goes, let's just say this. Let's just say, to me, if I'm the Carolina Panthers and I've got and Frank Reich's there, there's a couple things that I do. I take him. You want to know why I take him? Let me tell you why. They've got a staff that's got 191 years worth of coaching experience on it. They've got Thomas Brown, who's the coordinator. They've got Deuce Staley, who's the running backs coach. They've got Josh McCown, who's a quarterbacks coach. They got Jim Caldwell, who's assistant head coach offense. Tremendous coach, tremendous offensive staff. Okay, you put that guy behind that staff and let him learn for 2 years. They sit him for 2 years. I think you'll have a guy for 12, 15 years if you take him. Now, it won't be popular on game day, but I think long term, putting him in that system, he's got a chance to be a star.
Yeah, I hope so, and I'm rooting for him. It's not that I'm rooting against. It's just I watched every snap of him, and I hear people. And honestly, this time of year, everybody comes out to be an expert, and I get it. I understand it. We all fake it till we make it. But this is like Cam Newton. Are you kidding me? Cam Newton was a superstar at Auburn. Like, I mean, come on. Like, this is not the same player coming out of college. Now, he may end up being better than Cam Newton. I don't know. What do I know? Josh Allen, I had no clue this guy's going to be any good at all. But, I'm just saying, I think that the way this day and age in the NFL, they used to say like an NFL coach had basically 3 years to prove it, and then he was done. It's like now you have one. like you really don't even have two if you're miserable. So I'm just hoping that they give this kid the time. I think a full year of being behind someone and training, and then a following year of like, hey, let's bring in a fake guy to have a competition. He wins the competition. I think that's the way to go about it, and then I could see success. But I mean, look what we saw from Malik Willis this year, Reggie. I know he was later in the draft, but he looked completely.
Yeah,
he never played
couldn't do it. We'll finish up with Craig Bischoff, the PR man, the coach, talking ball on the Ballfather Podcast, presented by Sportskeeda. Hockey-wise, what's going on with your hockey team?
Yeah, the Panthers do very well here, Reggie. They basically, I mean, they don't sell out every game, but they come close. They have developed a lot of young players and have drafted very well. They just had the All-Star game here as well.
Right.
Disappointing 2 years ago. They were one of the top teams in the NHL, and they lost. I believe they got beat by the Lightning, and that set them back a little bit. They did a reset. They traded one of their best players in the offseason for another. It hasn't really worked out the way that they wanted to. They did sneak in to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't see them having a deep run, but at least from people that I talk to that cover the team, and obviously the people that attend the games, it's a very family-oriented situation. People mention, when you mention the Panthers, Reggie, this is not a team that plays in South Beach. This is not a team that plays east. They play all the way west by the Everglades. So it's like, it's families out there that are, taking their kids to the games, big family atmosphere type situation that, you want your kids to be able to go to. I mean, personally, I love it and I think it's great. But again, they would love to see more winning there. It feels like they're on the right track, but this was a step back from where they were last year. Listen,
I just want to tell you, thank you so much for joining us and sort of, getting us up to date on what's going on in South Florida. Zach tells me that your beautiful wife is outstanding. Your beautiful kids says great things about you, and I'm followed with great interest in your career. And you got to promise you're gonna come back on the show here when we do it again sometime, maybe right before the season starts. We'll have you back on, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on and get a little bit clearer picture of what's going on with the Dolphins as we start the 2023 NFL season.
Of course, Reggie, and thank you so much for, again, like I said at the beginning, I was definitely as close to a rookie as a rookie could be back then, and you treated me like I've been in the league for a decade, and certainly I try. The second I saw your email pop up, I immediately responded, and it's so great to catch up with you, and really it's an honor to be on with you here on this podcast. I have so much respect for everything that you've accomplished in your career, so thanks again.
I appreciate it. Hey, listen, take care of your family, man, and we'll talk to you real soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Reggie.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.